Hello and welcome to my September blanket fort. This video is a weirdly specific book recommendations video, and that is for creepy early modern historical fiction. Very specific, but I do have, 5 books on this list. Excuse me while I adjust my blanket. It's mid-September here, technically still summer, but it is freezing. So this sort of fits with the September creep into autumn and spooky season. I would say these books are all pretty spooky, so enjoy. I'm gonna go through these in alphabetical order by title. So first is The Familiars by Stacey Halls, and this is Stacey Halls' first book, and I read it last month, so it is fresh in my memory, and I really enjoyed it. It was suitably spooky. The main character, her name is pretty great. It is Fleetwood Shuttleworth. Fleetwood Shuttleworth, that's her name. And she's pregnant. She's worried that she's not going to survive this pregnancy. And so she finds a local woman, Alice, who is like, yes, I am a midwife and I won't let you die. And she's like, great, let's get to not dying. And then the neighbor has other ideas because he's like, but Alice, she has herbs and independence and no husband, so she must be a witch. Death. And Fleetwood, not wanting her now friend and ticket to essentially survival to die horribly, takes it upon herself to try to save her friend while she's still heavily pregnant. So it's very dramatic. I will tell you, it does have a happy ending. These characters are based on real people, so it's based on the Pendle witch trials in Lancashire in the 1600s while James I is on the throne. And so Fleetwood Shuttleworth is a real person. She ends up having 2 kids in real life. Alice Gray is a real person. She's the only one of the Pendle witches that gets acquitted in her trial. So Stacey Halls has taken these real people and invented a fictional web between them in what I think is very clever way. And it's dramatic, like I said, it's spooky. Is Alice a witch? Will Fleetwood's husband turn out to be a good guy? Will he be bad? Will he turn over Alice to the witch people? Is the neighbor gonna ruin things? Who knows? It's a wild ride. Would recommend. Next, The Glass Woman by Caroline Lee. This is set in Iceland, again in the 1600s, and the main character, she gets married to this guy who has had a first wife who has died semi-mysteriously, and the guy is kind of weird. He doesn't seem to have any friends, but he's a big man in the isolated town in which he lives. So the main character goes to live with him there, and the husband, I think, gives her a necklace with a glass woman on it, which is where the title of the book comes from. So she gets to the town. The people there are kind of weird, standoffish. She finds it difficult to make friends, and they seem to respect and fear but be suspicious of the husband. And then she starts hearing weird things upstairs and she's not allowed to go there. So it feels very Bluebeard, and it has a lot of elements of mystery, and it feels like sort of a Nordic early modern Crimson Peak. I would say it's not a horror book, but it is pretty creepy. Then next, I want to recommend The Manningtree Witches by A.K. Blakemore. This is, again, set in the 1600s. It's after the Pendle witches, so everyone is whipped up into 1, fearing witches, and 2, fearing witch trials if you happen to be a female person who maybe doesn't have a husband, like the main character in this book. And so it's about the main character trying to not get accused of being a witch, essentially. I'm gonna have Goodreads help me out with this description because I definitely did not do a good job. Woman tries not to be accused of witchcraft. The end. England, 1643, puritanical fever has gripped the nation, and in Manningtree, a town depleted of men since the wars began, the hot terror of damnation burns in the heart of women left to their own devices. Rebecca West, fatherless, husbandless, chafes against the drudgery of her days, livened only occasionally by her infatuation with the young handsome clerk, John Eads. But then a newcomer, Matthew Hopkins, arrives, a mysterious, pious figure dressed from head to toe in black. He takes over the Thorn Inn and begins to ask questions about the women on the margins of this diminished community are up to. Dangerous rumors of covens, pacts, and bodily wants have begun to hang women like Rebecca, and the future is as frightening as it is thrilling. I mean, I guess my original description was pretty accurate. Woman attempts not to be accused of witchcraft. But the blurb does say it in a more eloquent way, I guess. Next, I want to recommend The Mermaid and Mrs Hancock by Imogen Gower. This is set a little bit later. I'm not sure if it technically still counts as early modern, but in my head, the 1700s are part of the same like general era as the 1600s, even if like politics and fashion and international trade, etc., has definitely changed a lot since the 1600s. But I think they're close enough for this list to work with this book on it. So this is set in the 1700s. One of the main characters is an international trader. I think is the captain of a ship. I'm pretty sure he is. And he has found a mermaid, and he brings it back to London and starts to charge people to look at the mermaid. And then he runs into his possibly future wife when the mistress of a fancy house of ill repute gets in touch with him and asks for this mermaid to be on display at one of her soirees. And there he meets the possibly future Mrs. Hancock, who works there and has, I'm not sure I'd call her a boyfriend, but she's has like a long-term entertainment ship with this guy who is terrible. He's the worst. I hate him so much. And a lot of like drama happens. There's a little bit of a love triangle, if you can really call it that. Maybe it's more of like a romantic affection triangle. Maybe that's more accurate. And it all revolves around like this mermaid and who gets profits for displaying her, etc. I actually need to read this book again because it's been a while. But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed I'm not sure I could call it world building because it's not a fantasy world. I like the world rebuilding of the historical environment. How about that? World rebuilding. And I really like the characters. They're well fleshed out. They have complex motivations and complex relationships with each other, and like circumstances change, etc., etc. So I really thought this was a fun one. And it is creepy because the mermaid is kind of creepy. Like the way the mermaid is described is just, it feels really like off-putting and strange. And the mermaid's off-putting strange vibe has an effect on other people who feel off-put and also strange when they're around this mermaid. I think it is the perfect soft opening to spooky season. And last on this list, I want to recommend The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. And this is the first on this list that I read, and this is what kicked off my, I'm not sure I could call it obsession, my interest in early modern creepy historical fiction. So this is set in the Netherlands, again in the 1600s, 1686, and the main character, Nella, she is 18 and she is pushed off by her family to marry, again, this like weird guy who has a lot of power. So a lot of the plot points parallel The Glass Woman by Caroline Lee, but the story is very different. But the overarching creepy vibe is similar. So this is not like the same as The Glass Woman. It has the same vibe, and it seems like it follows a lot of the same plot, but it is different enough that I don't think, like, if you've read one, you've read the other one, if that makes sense. So her husband, John Brandt, though curiously distant, he presents her with an extraordinary wedding gift, a cabinet-sized replica of their home. It is to be furnished by an elusive miniaturist whose tiny creations ring eerily true. As Nella uncovers the secrets of her new household, she realizes the escalating dangers they face. The miniaturist seems to hold their fate in her hands, but does she plan to save or destroy them? So the miniaturist is a woman. And this is something that Nella finds like very odd. And it also means that the miniaturist is in danger in their society, which is heavily patriarchal. And that is something that Nella also struggles with. So a lot of her experience sort of has like a shadow parallel in the miniaturist in a lot of ways. Nella, she gets this dollhouse essentially, and she's like, ooh, how about, we furnish it, and how about we like put some dolls in it that represent us? And then the dolls like come, and there's some weird things about them, and she's like, how did the miniaturist know this about this person or this about me? And then while the dolls are inside the dollhouse, things about them change, and they seem to mirror events in real life. And that's really, really creepy. So Nella is creeped out by this, and then more dramatic things start happening. Like her husband is in trade, and some of his trade deals start to go a little sideways, and she's worried that bad things will happen as a result of this. And so she decides to try to help her husband, and therefore herself and his family, from falling into ruin. And things at some point get a little desperate. There are some dramatic twists in this. And so I think this fits very well in the creepy early modern historical fiction genre that I have set for this video. So that's it. Those are the 5 books. I really like this little subgenre, and I would absolutely like to read more of them. So if you have any creepy early modern historical fiction recommendations, please leave me a comment, and I would love to check them out. So you can also like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on social media, and I will see you next time. Bye guys.